Hey there, Grand Fam. I just wanted to give you a brief review of what I've observed so far with the simplicity as I am making sure that our trading plan will coincide with the new system. And based on what I've noticed thus far, um, it's about 90 to 95% compatible. There were some areas that I did tweak. And so with that, I believe that we can certainly continue to use, and I recommend that we continue to use the trading plan. I recommend that because one of the things that I noticed the difference is that the new system is really tailored towards a long-term trader, 4 hour or above, so a swing trade, and nothing's wrong with that. That's great. That's pretty great if that's how you want to trade. Whereas our trading plan that we use with the TA is tailored for a intraday trader or a scalper. And so clearly those are two different styles of trading, and the plan and what we look for and how we go about the market is totally different. So those are the things that you want to be aware of when you're using the new system. Now, if you want to use it for long term, absolutely great, no problem. But if you want to use it with our trading plan in mind, then there are some things that you're going to have to be aware of. Now, the first thing that I would say is the support and resistance dots. These support and resistance dots is they're coded, so you can't change the parameters. Is based on the algorithm that is coded in the system. And so what I've realized is in testing a few pairs, different time frames and such, that the support and resistance dots are in alignment with the fib key levels. And that's good because we know that those key levels are strong. We know price is going to hit those levels. We know that. We just don't know when. And that's perfectly okay. But if you're in that type of trade and you're basing it on the support and resistance dots here, then you have to be aware that from your entry to your previous support or resistance dot, there may be a lot of congestion. There may be some congestion, I should say, in between the two that will cause price to pull back on you. Now, our trading plan is devised in that it protects you from unnecessary drawdown. It identifies it. It identifies it and gives you an opportunity to avoid unnecessary drawdown. This system does not, it's not built that way. It's not built that way. So those are some things that you want to keep in mind. The trend wave right here as well, of course, that's coded also. So these are the areas that you cannot change. You can't do anything. And this, I had my 50 on here because what I noticed on the simplicity, when price close above or below the wave, it goes into motion. And with the 50, it's somewhat aligned, but not exact. And each pair is different. Time frames are different. So it's just an average. It's just an average. Sometimes it's perfectly lined up. Sometimes it's not. But keep that in mind as well. You can use this as a measure like we do with the 50, but it's not always the same. So you want to be aware of that also. Now, what I have done is I have, let me go back with the support and resistance. So for instance, in this case here, let's just say that we were, let me put my day separators on as well, right? So put the day separators on. So let's say that we are here at this particular candle right there, right? So it's above our wave, and let's just go ahead on and put the 50 on here as well. But I believe that would still be the same. So it's above, yeah, it's high above. So anyway, let's say right here, we came to the market and we lined up our MACD, our trend surfer, both saying green. And now we're going to look left for the previous support or resistance dots. We're going to measure 12 or more pips, right? So right here, we have about 20 pips. Now, this is the support and resistance that's built into the system. At this point in price, we're good. We're good, right? So right here, let's say we came to the market on this particular candle is above the 50, and then that would have given us about 46 pips. We look down at our trend surfer, we're green, and the MACD hasn't crossed over yet, but it's in that direction, right? Okay, so that's fine. That's fine. Now what I want to show you though, I want to show you the difference. Okay, I'm going to put our trend lines, I'm sorry, not trend lines, support and resistance on here. Now I'm going to make it white because honestly it doesn't make a difference what the color is. We're using these support and resistance dots as indications of where price is going and where potential drawdown, right? So we're going to make those white, and let me go back because I also make them, I set mine to current. Forgot to do that. So we're going to go to current, and now we are good to go. Okay. Now, so right at this point here, you can see the difference. This is the system. This is the potential support resistance prior to that area. So that's my point. That we don't see what the potential pullbacks are from the close of the candle to the support and resistance dots built into the Simplicity system. You can back test this yourself. This is just something that I've noticed. So let's say here we have our triples that came in. Right? And let me scrunch it a little bit. Now, so we had our triples to come in, right? Now, let's say we're right here on this bearish candle right here. We look left, just the system. Don't watch the other support resistance. Just the system. Looking left for the previous support or resistance will take us here. Takes us here, right? That's 220 pips. That's 220 pips. Now from the close of this candle to this area, there's going to be some pullbacks. As you can see, you can even see that. But even if you didn't see that, is highly likely that there will be. Now, once you put the support and resistance dots from the TA on there, we're able to identify some of those areas. One right here, one right here, one right here, right here. These are areas where price did something, pulled back, struggled, hesitated, what have you. But the system does not identify that. It's more likened to the Fibonacci, the key levels on the Fibonacci. So keep that in mind. Now, if you trade that, that's perfectly okay, but make sure that your lot size is adjusted so that you can handle the swing. Now, of course, you do know that each pair is different, behavior is different, pullbacks are different. So if you're following the support and resistance on Simplicity, just make sure that you protect your account by lowering your lot size, So now let's talk a little bit about what I added to my chart. Okay, so I did add the big arrow, right? So that it gives me directional support, tells me where price is, where the trend is going. And then what I did was I added the entry arrow. And this is from the TA. I just added an entry arrow. Now, the entry arrow, there are parameters that you can set on the entry arrow. So let's go to the entry arrow that I put in here, edit. Now, here is where you can change the parameters, which will change when the arrow populates. Now, I did play with a couple of numbers and just to see what type of consistency, patterns and trends I can identify. And the 12 is giving me a far more consistent pattern, what I'm seeing across the board of different pairs and different time frames. So right now, 12 is working. And so basically what that 12 says is the previous average 12 candles. is going to measure that, and it will populate the entry arrow. Now, you can change that to a smaller number. Keep in mind, the smaller the number, the sooner the arrow will populate. Now, you don't want it to populate too soon because you're getting further and further out away from the direction price is trying to go in. So what can likely happen is that you put yourself in a position where you're going to be in more drawdown or consolidation before price really starts to move in your direction. So again, I find that 12 worked really well, and that works. Another thing I found, let me just say this. So I put 12 here and then slide all the way down. Everything else stays the same, and make sure for alert on that you have true, and everything else is the same. And then you just hit OK, and you're good to go. So when the entry arrow populates, then what I do is I come and I start looking for my confirmations. Another thing that I notice with the entry arrow and the parameters that I set is that it does align with the MACD cross, the MACD cross. Now, all the time, no, nothing is, but more consistently, it lines up with that, right? But we still have our confirmations, and our confirmations still have to meet, right? Still have to meet. So what I am doing is I am waiting for my entry arrow to populate. Once my entry arrow populate, I'm looking for, so we're selling here, so I'm looking for a bearish candle to what? Close below my 50. Close below my 50. In this case, it populated, but it didn't meet that first, right? So we're not doing anything. Now I go to the next candle that did. Right here, it closed below my 50 and the trend wave, but I'm looking for the 50, right? So it closed below. It closed below. Now what we want to do is we want to line up below. So our trend surfer is red, red. That's a check. Now, let me just say this. If it's opposite, that doesn't mean that you can't take the trade. If it's opposite, it just means that it's a more aggressive trade. That's all it means. But we already know it's more aggressive because we have the entry arrow that will populate before the triples populate. So that in itself makes it a little more aggressive. But the benefit is it gives us an opportunity to get in at an earlier price, right? And by the time that the triples on the Simplicity populate, we will be deep in profit. We'll be deep in profit. Again, go back test it for yourself, and you'll begin to see the consistency. So in this case here, it did line up. The MACD, you notice the MACD cross, right? It lined up once it crossed over the 50. It lined up, so that is going in a bearish territory as well. Now the last thing we do, and I'm just going over, this is our trading plan. Now the last thing that we do is we look left. We want to concentrate our efforts in the previous 48 hours, and we're looking for support and resistance dots that that's below the close of the candle. So that puts us in these ranges right here, right? Puts us in these ranges right there. So we're looking at this area, which is 139. We're looking at 84. We're looking at 60. So what that basically tells us is that we can certainly get 20, right? We can get 20, and of course we can trail the trade as well so that we can capitalize on the bigger pip move. Now here's another thing that I want to just point out, right? I want to just point out, which is this candle right here. Now based on simplicity, you would be going right straight to this area right here, which is what, 346 pips. 346 pips. It does not give you any of these indications. These are pullback indications. These are drawdown indications, and they're vital to know. You want to know when you're going to hit a roadblock, because you know what that means. That means you're going in the opposite direction likely, right? Highly likely. So that's why this is very, very important, and for an intraday trader. If you're swinging, you're not so much concerned about that because, one, you have a large enough account. to handle the swing. Well, even if you have a large account, it's not so much that, it's the lot size. You have to make sure that you adjust your lot size so that whatever your account balance is, you will be able to withstand the swing. So if you are more privy or more, not privy, gravitate more towards swing trading, higher time frame trading, this is perfect. Like, you really don't have to tweak it. It's perfect, right? But if you're more intraday, more scalper, then you definitely want to incorporate some other things or simply continue to use our TA. There are benefits, though, to both. There are benefits to both. There certainly are. Now, one of the other benefits, like as a combination, is that um, the distance, right? What I'm finding is 24 to 48 hours from the entry arrow populating to the triples populating, about 24 to 48 hours. That's the time frame. And what I'm also noticing that it's about 40 plus pips. So, hey, in this case here, now we still going to use our guidelines. Our guidelines did not meet up here. So no matter what, we wouldn't take that. So here it met up. Here it met up. So from this point to when the triples actually came in, it was 100. You would have been in profit 117. Is that 17? Yeah, 117 pips. From this point right here, entry arrow came. It didn't meet our qualification at this point, but at this point it did. And you got in the trade. And let's say you got in and you're just going to take it to the triples populate. You can do that as well. So there's other ways that you can trade this and still be very profitable. So say you did it that way. You're in and now you're not going to get out until the triples populate. Or at least when the triples populate, you will reassess, take some profit. Please take some profit, right? You might be trailing at that point. Whatever the case is, I still recommend that you lock your 20 in. So round about 15, maybe 20 pips after your 20, go ahead on and start trailing it. Start trailing it. And when the triples do come in, you already trailing it. So, just continue to trail and take your profits as you're going along. Take your profits as you're going along. So that's one way that you can use this system to get your profits. As far as our trading plan goes, we're going to continue to do the same thing. You can either just stay with the TA. If you want to use some of the elements that's in the simplicity, what I highly recommend is that you add the support and resistance from the TA, add it to your chart. Make sure it's on set to current, add it to your chart, and just make it white. That way there'll be no conflict. You'll clearly identify the coded support and resistance from the ones that we use on the TA. So you definitely can incorporate the best of both worlds when you are, if you want to use both systems. So again, that's what I did. Let me just make sure I covered everything that I was able to identify. Yep. So yeah, signal appears. Now I did put in the video to make sure that you get push notifications on your phones. We got that. And also with the arrow here, with our entry arrow thus far, and I am following up to get some clarification, but thus far, these entry arrows don't allow you to push notification to your phone. But if you have your MetaTrader 4 up, you'll definitely get the alert. You'll definitely get the alert. If you have the VPS, then the VPS will be monitoring or running in the background of your MT4, and you'll still be able to get your alert. But again, I'm going to follow up. And if anybody in the group know of a way that we can have our entry arrow pushed to our mobile phone, that would be so incredibly awesome. Please follow me, share, so that we can all be on the same page. Okay, so we can be on the same page. But yes, back test a couple of them. Let's go to Euro. Let's go to Euro Chef. Euro Chef. Okay, so we have the triples that came in for a buy. we had our entry arrow that came in here. So once that came in, we would have gone to the chart. We would have made sure our alignment was in accordance, right? And I can already see that it's not. So we would not have done anything. Why? Because this is a bearish candle. It's not above our 50. So we wouldn't have done anything anyway, right? We're waiting for it to be above the 50. Now, this candle right here is above the 50. And this is a perfect example. It's not above this trend wave. See, I'm basing it on the 50 because I know what that means, right? I'm not too sure about this. And the mere fact that it's a conflict. It's not above the trend wave, but it's above the 50. So I'm going with the 50. And in this case here, we line it up. And what are we looking for? Bulls. We're looking for buys. So our trend surfer is opposite, which again, I explained that's not a big deal at all. The lower time frame is bearish. High time frame is bullish. But we already know that is more aggressive. We already know that because we set our entry arrow to populate. So we already know that, right? And so now we look at our MACD. Our MACD is crossed over, going in that direction. So that's a plus. Okay, so at that point, what we would do, one or two things you can do. According to the trading plan, we're looking left. We're looking left. We're looking for the previous support or resistance dots. We need to clear at least 12 or more in pips. So this would be the previous, right? And so right there, we are at 17, okay? And right here, we're at 19. And right here, we're at 37, okay? So that is good. That's a good thing. Now we're in consolidation. Obviously, we wouldn't have known that. But if the confirmations check out, then they check out and we roll with it, right? What do we do know? We know it's going in our direction, right? We can't help consolidation. Sometimes you just get stuck in it. But we know we're going in our directions. You put your position in for your 20 pips. You can call it a day or you can run it. Either way it goes. When will we, one or two things that you can do as far as combining the two systems together with our trading plan and elements of the system is you can, so you would have gotten in here. Now, once the triples on the system would have populated, well, how many pips would you be up? You would be up 41 pips. You will already be up 41 pips. And that is the benefit, one of the biggest benefits of putting that entry arrow here to give you a better entry, so that once you get the triples designed in the system, you're already deep in profit. You really should be trailing at that point. You should be trailing at that point. And this can also be an indication to when you start trailing, right? So just stay in the trade, trail it, stay in the trade, and when the triples come, then lock in your trail. Now you're risk-free. So if you had done that at this point, you would have been like 39 pips in profit and lock it in at that point. And no matter what, you're walking away with 39 pips. So that's the other way that you can use both the new system combined with our confirmations on our trading plan to maximize your pips. So hopefully that made some sense, and you can kind of see how you can work it. But definitely our support and resistance dots set to current, if you're using simplicity, need to be on your chart, because if not, and you go by the support and resistance in simplicity, you are swing trading. You're in a long-term trade and you don't have the insight of knowing where those pit stops are along the way. That can hurt you. That can hurt you. So if y'all have any questions about anything, let me know. We're going to keep peeling this onion back, and we're going to fashion it and mold it and perfect it so that we can get the most out of it, because I think it's a great system and we can definitely maximize our pips with it. Alrighty. See you on the next video.